Commander Velther stood on the bridge of his warship and looked at the blue planet below. Earth, such a small world. Such weak creatures living on it. He had conquered 47 worlds in his long career. This would be the easiest one yet. "Commander, the scans are complete," his second officer said. The officer's name was Mordek, and he had more scars than any soldier Velther had ever seen. The humans have primitive weapons. Chemical explosives. Metal projectiles. Nothing that can harm our shields. Velther smiled. His forearms crossed over his armored chest. "How many warriors do they have?" "Millions, sir. But they are fragile. Their bodies break easily. They have no natural armor. No claws, no venom. They should not last more than a few hours against the Crimson Talons." The Crimson Talons. 10,000 of the Kryn Empire's finest shock troops. They had never lost a battle. They had burned cities on dozens of worlds. They had made entire species kneel and beg for mercy. "Send the demand for surrender," Velther ordered. "Let them know the Kryn Empire has arrived." The message was sent. Velther expected an immediate response, fear, panic, perhaps some brave fool trying to negotiate. Instead, the humans took 6 hours to reply. When they did, the message was simple and strange. "You have 24 hours to leave our system. This is your only warning." The bridge fell silent. Then Velther began to laugh. His officers joined him. Even the scarred Mordek managed to smile, though his eyes looked troubled. "They warn us." Velther roared with laughter. "These soft creatures warn the Crimson Talons. Prepare for immediate assault? I want to be standing in their capital city by tomorrow." Mordek stepped forward. "Commander, perhaps we should study them more." The way they responded, "Enough!" Velther's voice cut like a blade. "I have fought species with armor like stone. I have fought species with acid blood. I have fought species that could survive in the void of space. These humans are none of those things. They are prey that thinks it is a predator. We launch in 1 hour." The dropships fell from the sky like meteors. They landed in a city the humans called Sol. Velther expected chaos, running, screaming. Instead, the streets were empty, quiet, too quiet. "Where are they?" one of his soldiers asked. The answer came in fire and thunder. Human weapons opened up from every building. The bullets bounced off Kryn armor, but there were so many of them. Thousands of rounds every second. The Crimson Talons advanced, their plasma rifles cutting through concrete and steel. Then Velther saw his first human soldier up close. The man wore green armor that looked like it was made from cloth and metal plates. He held a rifle that seemed crude and simple. The soldier's name tag said Daesung. He was bleeding from his shoulder. A plasma bolt had burned through his armor. The human should have been dead or running. Instead, Daesung raised his rifle and fired. The bullet hit a Kryn soldier in the neck joint, the one weak spot in the armor. The soldier fell. "Impossible," Velther whispered. "That was a lucky shot." But it was not lucky. Another human soldier appeared. Then another. Then dozens. They moved like they knew exactly where the Kryn weak points were. They fought with cold precision. When they were injured, they kept fighting. When they should have retreated, they held their ground. A human medic ran across open ground to reach a wounded soldier. Velther saw her name tag, Jiwan. He ordered his gunner to fire. The plasma cannon hit her directly in the chest. The blast should have vaporized her. G1 flew backward and crashed into a wall. Her armor was burning. Velther waited for her to die. Instead, she got up. She was coughing blood, but she got up. She pulled the wounded soldier to cover. Then she picked up her rifle and shot 2 Kryn soldiers before disappearing into a building. "What are these creatures?" Mordek said quietly beside him. The battle continued for 8 hours. 8 hours that felt like 8 days. The Crimson Talons pushed forward, but the humans made them pay for every meter. They used their buildings as fortresses. They used their vehicles as bombs. They fought from the sewers and the rooftops. They never stopped. Velther lost 100 soldiers. then 200, then 500. Numbers that should not be possible. Not against a primitive species. Not in a single battle. "Commander, we need to pull back," Mordek urged. "We need to reassess? No. We are the Crimson Talons. We do not retreat from prey." But the humans were not prey. They were something else. Something the Kryn had never encountered before. They did not fight like soldiers following orders. They fought like every single one of them had decided that dying was acceptable if it meant taking a Kryn warrior with them. A human soldier charged directly at Velthar's position. The soldier had no legs below the knees. He had lost them to an explosion. He was crawling on his hands, pulling himself forward, still firing his rifle. Still fighting. Still refusing to die quietly. Velthar shot him. But the image stayed in his mind. As night fell, Velthar realized something terrible. He had started the day with 10,000 soldiers. Now he had less than 3,000. And the humans were not slowing down. If anything, more of them were arriving. Soldiers who should have been across the planet somehow appearing in the battle. Fighting with weapons they pulled from dead comrades. Fighting with captured Kryn weapons. Fighting with pieces of broken metal if they had nothing else. "Retreat to the ships," Velthar finally ordered. The words tasted like poison. The retreat became a rout. The humans hunted them through the streets. By the time Velthar reached his drop ship, only 800 soldiers remained. 800 from 10,000. In one day. In one city. As his ship climbed toward orbit, Velthar saw more cities below. Millions of humans. If one city could do this, what would the whole planet do? The main fleet was gone. The humans had somehow destroyed it. Velthar only learned this when his dropship found debris where his warships should have been. Only one transport remained, heavily damaged. "Get us out of this system," he ordered. "Maximum speed?" Mordek looked at him with those scarred eyes. "What do we tell High Command?" "The truth. That we have made a terrible mistake. Only one ship escaped Earth, only one ship to carry the warning." But Velthar knew the truth even as his ship jumped to faster-than-light travel. The Kryn Empire would not believe him. They would think he was a coward. They would send another force. They would send warriors who thought they were the strongest. And those warriors would learn what Velthar had learned. The humans looked weak. They looked soft. They looked like prey, but they were not. They were something far more dangerous. They were survivors who had decided that their home was worth dying for. And when a species decides that, when every single member decides that, they become unstoppable. Velthar's last thought before reaching the communications station was simple: may the gods have mercy on whatever force they send next. Because the humans will not. Huntmaster Croshan did not believe the report from the first wave. 10,000 Crimson Talons destroyed by primitive humans. Impossible. The survivors must have been cowards. They must have run instead of fighting. The Crimson Talons were weak, he told his gathered Void Reapers. They fought like regular soldiers. But we are not regular soldiers. We are hunters. We are death itself. The Void Reapers stood in perfect silence. Each one was a masterpiece of biological engineering. Stronger than normal Kryn, faster, smarter. Their armor could bend light, making them nearly invisible. Their weapons could pierce any known material. They had ended rebellions on 23 worlds. They had never failed a mission. Croshan brought 1,000 Reapers to Earth, not 10,000 like the first wave. He did not need 10,000. 1,000 hunters would be enough to break the humans. "We will not make the mistake of open battle," Croshan explained to his team leaders. "We will insert silently. We will eliminate their leaders, their generals, their politicians, their scientists. When the head is cut off, the body dies." The plan was perfect. The Void Reapers were perfect. Nothing could go wrong. Everything went wrong. The insertion was flawless. The Reapers dropped into Earth's atmosphere in stealth pods. No radar detected them. No sensors picked them up. They landed in darkness across 5 major human cities. They activated their camouflage and became invisible. Croshan led a team into a city called Tokyo. Their target was a human military command center. 6 Reapers moved through the streets like ghosts. No human could see them. No human could hear them. Then a human soldier turned and looked directly at Croshan. The soldier's name tag said Taiyang. He raised his rifle and fired. The bullet hit Croshan's shoulder, finding the gap between armor plates. "Contact!" Croshan shouted. How did he see me? Taiyang was already moving. More human soldiers appeared. They were not looking around blindly. They were looking exactly where the Reapers were, as if the camouflage did not exist. "They can see us," one of Croshan's Reapers said in disbelief. "Impossible. Our technology is centuries ahead of theirs." But the humans could see them, or hear them, or smell them. Croshan did not know how, but they could detect the Reapers. And once detected, the hunters became the hunted. The humans fought differently than the first wave had reported. They did not stand and trade fire. They used ambush. They used traps. They fought like they had been hunting invisible enemies their entire lives. In Paris, a team of Reapers walked into a building that seemed empty. A human engineer named Minji had rigged the entire structure with explosives. When the Reapers were inside, she detonated the charges remotely. The building collapsed. 15 Reapers died in seconds. In New York, the humans used their sewers to move unseen. The Reapers could track heat signatures, but the humans learned to mask their heat. They wore cooling suits. They moved through cold water. They attacked from directions that should have been impossible. In Mumbai, a Reaper team cornered what they thought was a group of human civilians. One of them was a man named Heijin. He was protecting his wife and 2 children. He had no military training. He worked in an office building. Heijin killed 3 Reapers with a metal pipe and a homemade explosive. When the 4th Reaper shot him in the chest, Heijin grabbed the Reaper's arm and held on until other humans arrived. He died making sure the Reaper could not escape. His family survived. Croshan could not understand it. These were not soldiers. Even the soldiers were different from any warriors he had fought before. They worked together like a single organism. When one human fell, another took their place instantly. They learned from every encounter. They adapted. After 1 week, Croshan had lost 300 Reapers. After 2 weeks, 500 were gone. His teams were being eliminated faster than they could eliminate targets. "Huntmaster, we need extraction," his second-in-command said. "We are losing this fight. We are Void Reapers. We do not lose." But they were losing. For the first time in their history, the Void Reapers were being outmaneuvered. The humans had turned every city into a killing ground. They knew their own territory better than the Reapers could ever learn it. They used their buildings, their vehicles, their infrastructure as weapons. A human combat engineer named Minji became legendary among the surviving Reapers. She could turn a city block into a death trap in hours. She used their own technology against them. When Reapers tried to track her, she led them into ambush. She killed 40 Reapers personally before Croshan decided she was too dangerous to pursue. The humans also learned to use captured Reaper weapons. A human soldier named Boyaung picked up a fallen Reaper's rifle and figured out how to use it in minutes. She taught others. Soon, humans were fighting with both their primitive weapons and advanced Kryn technology. Croshan realized the terrible truth. In the 3rd week, the humans were not just defending. They were hunting. They tracked Reaper movements. They predicted Reaper tactics. They set traps that showed an understanding of Kryn psychology that should not be possible. In London, a Reaper squad walked into what looked like a human military base. It was actually a trap set by a human commander named Taiyang and his entire battalion. They had studied Reaper attack patterns. They knew the Reapers would target the base. They let the Reapers walk in. Then they sealed every exit and killed all 20 Reapers in the building. "They are learning faster than we can adapt," Croshan admitted to himself. It was the hardest thing he had ever said. In the 4th week, Croshan had only 200 Reapers left. 200 from 1,000. The humans had lost tens of thousands of soldiers, but they had millions more. And every human soldier who survived was now experienced in fighting. Reapers, the humans started coordinating across the entire planet. Information about Reaper tactics spread instantly. A trap that worked in Beijing was used in Snow Paulo an hour later. A weapon effective in Sydney appeared in Moscow the next day. They communicate too well, Crochan said. They share information too quickly. How is this possible? His technical officer explained, they have a global information network. Billions of connected devices. Every human can share data with every other human almost instantly. Crochan felt cold fear for the first time in his life. The Kryn Empire controlled information carefully. Knowledge was power, so knowledge was restricted. But humans shared everything. Every soldier knew what every other soldier knew. Every victory was everyone's victory. Every tactic was everyone's tactic. The final battle happened in Seoul, where the first wave had fallen. Crochan led his last 50 Reapers in a desperate attempt to destroy a human command center. If they could take out the human leadership, perhaps the war could still be won. They never reached the command center. The humans were waiting. Hundreds of them. Led by soldiers who had fought both the first wave and the Reapers. Soldiers who knew every Kryn tactic. Soldiers who were no longer afraid. Crochan fought like a demon. He killed 12 humans personally. But for every human that fell, 2 more appeared. They kept coming. They never stopped coming. A human soldier put 3 bullets in Crochan's chest. The Huntmaster fell to his knees. He looked up at the soldier. The name tag said Taiyang. The same soldier who had seen through his camouflage on the first day. How? Crochan coughed blood. How did you defeat us? Taiyang looked down at him without mercy. You came to our home. You thought you were hunting us? But this is our world. We know every street, every building, every shadow. You were never the hunters. You were always the prey. Crochan tried to speak, but his communication device crackled first. It was a transmission from orbit. The support ships were under attack. The humans had somehow reached space with their primitive rockets and were destroying the Kryn fleet. Impossible, Crochan whispered. But he knew the truth. Nothing was impossible for these creatures. They adapted. They learned. They never gave up. His last transmission to High Command was simple. They are not soldiers. They are all soldiers. Every human is a warrior. Do not send more troops. Do not... The transmission ended. Tiang had crushed the communication device. No Void Reapers returned home. Not one. 1,000 of the Kryn Empire's most elite hunters disappeared on Earth. The planet that should have been an easy target had become a graveyard. And somewhere in the Kryn capital, the High Command received Crochan's final message. They did not understand it. They thought the Reapers had failed because they had underestimated human numbers. Send the executors, the War Council decided. Send the psychic warriors. They will break the human will to fight. They still did not understand. The humans did not need will to fight. Fighting was what they did. It was what they had always done. It was what they would always do when someone threatened their home. Executor Prime Shakrov did not walk. He floated 6 inches above the ground, surrounded by an aura of psychic power that made the air shimmer. He was old, ancient, he had lived for 300 years, and he had ended wars with a thought. The Crimson Talons were brutes, he said to his gathered executors. The Void Reapers were hunters, but we are gods. We do not fight with weapons. We fight with the mind. We will break these humans before we even touch their planet. 100 executors descended on Earth. Each one could crush a tank with their mind. Each one could read thoughts, plant fears, and destroy wills. They were the Kryn Empire's ultimate weapon. They had turned entire populations into slaves without firing a shot. The executors did not hide. They did not sneak. They descended in broad daylight, floating down from the sky like dark angels. They landed in major cities across the globe. They expected humans to feel their power and fall to their knees in terror. Instead, they felt resistance. Mental resistance. Shakrov stood in the center of Moscow and reached out with his mind. He would crush the will of every human in the city. He would make them see their worst nightmares. He would break them. His psychic wave hit a wall. "Impossible," he whispered. Then he felt her. A human mind that burned like a star. Strong, focused, shielded. The woman's name was Subin. She was young, barely 25 years old, but her mind was like steel. "You cannot break us," Subin's voice echoed in his head. "We are stronger than you think." Shakrov pushed harder. His psychic power could level buildings, but Subin's shield held. And behind her shield, he felt others. Hundreds of human minds, all shielded. All ready. "They have psychics," one of his executors reported from Tokyo. "The humans have developed mental abilities. This should not be possible." Psychic powers took thousands of years to evolve. Humans were too young, too primitive. Yet here they were, fighting with mental abilities that matched executor training, but it was more than that. Even the humans without psychic powers were resistant. Their minds were chaotic, unpredictable. When an executor tried to read their thoughts, they found a storm of emotions, memories, and ideas that made no sense. Human minds did not work like Kryn minds. They could not be easily controlled. In London, an executor tried to dominate a human soldier named Yong. The executor pushed his will into Yong's mind, expecting easy conquest. Instead, Yong started laughing. "Is that all?" Yong said out loud, "I've had worse headaches from drinking too much." The executor pushed harder. Yong stopped laughing and raised his rifle. "Get out of my head." He shot the executor 3 times. The psychic shields protected the executor from the first 2 bullets. The third one got through because the executor was too shocked to maintain concentration. The humans were not just resistant. They were learning to fight back. A human scientist named Nari was studying captured executor equipment. She was not a psychic, but she understood physics. She understood waves and frequencies and resonance. Within 2 weeks, she had built a weapon. It was crude. It was ugly. But it worked. When activated, it sent out a pulse that disrupted psychic abilities. Any executor within range suddenly lost their powers. The first time the weapon was used, 3 executors died. They had relied on their powers so much that without them, they were just ordinary Kryn soldiers. And ordinary soldiers did not last long against humans. Shakrov realized the war was not going as planned. He gathered his remaining executors and decided to target the human leadership directly. If they could kill the generals and the presidents and the commanders, the humans would fall into chaos. They identified a target, a human military commander named Wusong. He was coordinating the defense of the European sector. He was not a psychic. He had no special powers. He was just a soldier who had risen through the ranks by being smarter than everyone else. Shakrov and 5 other executors went to kill Wusong personally. They found him in a command bunker deep underground. The bunker should have been easy to breach. Executors could walk through walls, could bypass any security, could kill anyone they wanted. But Wusong was ready. The bunker was lined with Nari's resonance devices. The moment the executors entered, their powers vanished. They became ordinary, vulnerable. Wusong stood in the center of the command room. He held a simple pistol. Around him were 20 human soldiers. None of them were psychics. None of them had special powers. "I've been waiting for you," Wusong said calmly. Shakrov tried to reach for his power. Nothing. The resonance field blocked everything. He was defenseless for the first time in 300 years. "You relied too much on your gifts," Wusong continued. "You forgot how to fight without them. That is your weakness." The battle was short and brutal. The 6 executors tried to fight with their physical strength. But they were old. They had not trained their bodies in centuries. The humans cut them down like wheat. Shakrov fell last. He looked up at Wusong with dying eyes. "We are gods. You are nothing. How do you win?" Wusong knelt beside him. "You are not gods. You are just soldiers with special abilities. And we have fought soldiers before. We have fought enemies with better technology, with better weapons, with better armor. We always find a way to win. Do you know why? Jakrov could not answer. He was dying too fast. Because we adapt, Wusong said quietly. You come at us with strength, we learn to dodge. You come at us with stealth, we learn to see. You come at us with psychic power, we learn to shield. Whatever you bring, we will find an answer. That is what humans do. We survive. The executors fell one by one across the planet. Some were killed by human psychics like Subin, who had learned to turn their own powers against them. Some were killed by Nari's resonance weapons. Some were killed by simple bullets and explosives from soldiers who did not need powers to fight. In Beijing, an executor tried to take over an entire military base by dominating the minds of the soldiers. But a human psychic named Subin was waiting. She had learned to create a feedback loop. When the executor tried to dominate the soldiers, his own power was reflected back at him. His mind broke under the strain. In New Delhi, 3 executors tried to cause mass panic by projecting fear into the civilian population. But humans had something the Kryn did not understand: courage. Yes, the humans felt fear, but they fought through it. They protected each other. They refused to give in to terror. A civilian named Yoman, who had no combat training, shielded children from an executor's fear projection. The executor made him see his worst nightmares. Yanin screamed. He cried. But he did not move. He stood between the executor and the children until human soldiers arrived. After 1 month, 70 executors were dead. After 2 months, 90 were gone. Jakrov was dead. The executors who remained were running, hiding, trying to escape a planet they had expected to conquer in days, the last surviving. Executor transmitted a final message to Kryn High Command. His name was Talver, and he was young for an executor. Only 70 years old. He had believed in the mission. He had believed in the power of the executors. Do not send more, he transmitted. They cannot be broken. We tried to break their minds. They broke ours instead. We tried to make them see fear. They showed us what real fear is. These creatures ... They are not fighting for conquest. They are not fighting for glory. They are fighting for survival. And nothing is more dangerous than a creature that fights to survive. The transmission ended. Talver was killed 3 hours later by human soldiers in Sydney. His body was found surrounded by resonance devices. He had been running from them, trying to escape their effect. But the humans had placed the devices everywhere. There was nowhere to run. No executors returned home. 100 went to Earth. 100 died on Earth. In the Kryn capital, the High Command finally began to understand the truth. 3 waves, 3 failures, but they could not accept it. They could not believe that humans were this dangerous. Send the world breakers, the War Council ordered. Send the fleet. We will not land on their planet. We will burn it from orbit. We will turn their world to glass. One council member, an old general who had fought in the ancient wars, spoke up. And if that fails? The others looked at him like he was crazy. It will not fail, the War Council leader said. Nothing survives orbital bombardment, nothing. But the old general remembered something. He remembered that 3 times now, the Kryn Empire had sent their finest. 3 times, nothing had returned. He said nothing more. But he thought, what if we are fighting something that cannot be defeated with force? What if we are fighting something that only gets stronger the harder we try to break it? What if we have made a mistake that will destroy us all? Arch-General Tholmach commanded the Worldbreaker fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Devastation. He was not like the commanders who had come before. He was not arrogant. He was practical. He had studied the reports from the first 3 waves. He had watched the recordings. He had learned. The others failed because they tried to fight the humans on the ground, he told his fleet captains. They went down to the surface and the humans killed them. We will not make that mistake. We will stay in orbit. We will burn their cities from space. We will turn their oceans to steam. we will crack their continents. And we will never set foot on their cursed planet. The Worldbreaker fleet consisted of 50 capital ships. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a moon. Together they could sterilize a planet in days. No ground troops. No boarding parties. No risk. It was the perfect plan. The fleet arrived at Earth and immediately began bombardment. Nuclear missiles fell like rain. Plasma beams carved through cities. Kinetic weapons struck with the force of asteroids. The humans had no defense against this kind of attack. Their shields could not reach orbit. Their weapons could not penetrate starship armor. Los Angeles disappeared in nuclear fire. Mumbai burned under plasma strikes. Shanghai was hit by 3 kinetic weapons that shattered the surrounding area for hundreds of miles. Millions of humans died in the first week. They are breaking, Tholmach said with satisfaction. Soon they will surrender. But the humans did not surrender. They evacuated. They moved into underground bunkers. They spread out across their planet. They adapted. And they fought back in ways Tholmach did not expect. A human pilot named Isiel launched from a hidden base in Korea. Her fighter was small, primitive. It should not have been able to reach orbit. But it did. Human engineers had strapped additional fuel tanks to the fighter. They had added boosters. They had turned a simple aircraft into a spacecraft through sheer determination and duct tape. Isiel was not alone. Hundreds of human pilots launched in modified fighters. They swarmed the Worldbreaker fleet like angry insects. Their weapons could barely scratch the hull of a capital ship, but there were so many of them. And they were not trying to win through firepower. They were buying time. While the fighters kept the Worldbreakers busy, human naval commander Kyungmin led a different kind of attack. The humans had orbital stations. Small research platforms that the Kryn had ignored because they seemed harmless. Kyungmin had turned them into weapons. The stations launched debris, scrap metal, broken satellites, old fuel tanks, anything that could be accelerated to high speed. In space, speed equals energy. A piece of metal traveling at orbital velocity hits like a bomb. The debris storm hit the Worldbreaker fleet like a shotgun blast. Ships that could survive nuclear weapons were damaged by flying trash. Sensors were blinded. Communication arrays were destroyed. One capital ship lost its main engines when a destroyed satellite crashed into its propulsion system. Impossible. Tholmach roared. They are fighting us with garbage. But it was working. The humans had no advanced weapons. No energy shields. No faster-than-light drives. But they had billions of tons of orbital debris, and they knew how to use it. A human engineer named Bora was leading the debris operations from a hidden station. She had been a civilian satellite engineer before the war. Now she was a weapon designer. She calculated trajectories. She timed releases. She turned the space around Earth into a minefield. Target the eternal devastation, she ordered. Hit their command ship. Debris struck Tholmach's flagship. The shields held, but the constant impacts drained power. The ship had to divert energy from weapons to shields. The bombardment of Earth slowed. The war turned into a siege. The humans could not destroy the fleet. The fleet could not effectively bombard the planet while defending against debris attacks. Weeks turned into months. Both sides were bleeding. Both sides were losing resources, but the humans had one advantage. They were on their homeworld. Every factory was building weapons. Every scientist was developing new technology. Every person was contributing to the war effort. The Worldbreakers were far from home, far from resupply, far from reinforcements. Kyungmin developed new tactics. Human ships started launching from hidden bases and attacking in hit-and-run strikes. They were smaller than Kryn vessels, weaker, but faster. They would dart in, fire missiles, and run before the Worldbreakers could respond. They fight like cowards. Tholmach complained, but cowards do not charge warships with makeshift weapons. Cowards do not continue fighting when millions of their people have died. The humans were not cowards. They were survivors. And survivors do whatever it takes to win. A human pilot named Isiel became legendary. She had survived 30 combat missions. She flew a fighter that was held together with patches and prayers. She had personally destroyed 2 Kryn destroyers and damaged a battleship on her 31st mission. Her fighter was hit. The engine died. Life support failed. She was drifting in space, slowly running out of air. But she was drifting toward the eternal devastation. Isiel made a choice. She used her last bit of fuel to aim directly at Tholmach's flagship. Her fighter was equipped with a nuclear warhead. A small one, meant for ground targets. It would barely scratch a capital ship's shields unless it detonated inside the shield perimeter. Isiel's fighter crashed through the shield at the exact moment the shields flickered. Laura had hit the ship with debris at that same instant, forcing the shields to reset for a fraction of a second. It was impossible timing. It should not have worked, but it did. The nuclear warhead detonated against the hull. The explosion ripped through 3 decks. Tholmach survived, but hundreds of his crew died. The eternal devastation lost power to its weapon systems. Tholmach screamed in rage. He ordered every ship to focus fire on the location where Isiel had launched. But she was already gone, dead, drifting in space. But her sacrifice had crippled his flagship. More human pilots followed her example. Not all of them had nuclear weapons. Some just aimed their damaged fighters at Kryn ships and crashed into them at high speed. The impacts barely damaged the massive warships, but each attack forced the Kryn to divert attention. Each attack bought time for other humans to act. Kyungmin saw the pattern. The Kryn were adapting to the debris field. They were learning to predict the attacks. He needed something new, something unexpected. "We need to take the fight to them," he told his commanders. "We need to board their ships." "Impossible," they said. "We have no boarding craft. No breach equipment. No way to get through their armor." "Then we will make a way," Kyungmin replied. Human engineers created breach pods from old cargo containers. They attached rockets to them. They filled them with soldiers in spacesuits. It was insane. It was desperate. It should not work. 20 pods launched toward the nearest Kryn destroyer. 15 were destroyed by point defense. 4 missed their target. 1 hit. The pod smashed through the hull of the destroyer. The impact killed half the humans inside. The other half stormed into the ship. They fought in zero gravity. They fought with weapons that barely worked in the cold of space. They fought against superior numbers and superior technology. They lost. All of them died. But before they died, they destroyed the destroyer's reactor. The ship went dark. Dead in space. More boarding attempts followed. Most failed. But each attempt taught the humans something new. Each attempt refined the tactics. And each attempt terrified the Kryn crew. The idea that humans would voluntarily crash into their ships, knowing they would probably die, was beyond their understanding. A human pilot named Hyunsu volunteered for a suicide mission. His fighter was too damaged to return to Earth. He was going to die anyway. So he aimed his fighter at the eternal devastation and accelerated to maximum speed. "For Earth," he transmitted. His last words, Hyunsu's fighter crashed into the bridge of the eternal devastation. The explosion killed Arch-General Tholmach instantly. The flagship lost command and control. Without their commander, the Worldbreaker fleet fell into chaos. Kyungmin saw his chance. All ships, full assault. Hit them now while they are disorganized. The human fleet attacked. They were outnumbered. They were outgunned. But they were unified. They were coordinated. And they were fighting for their home. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships died by the dozens. But Kryn ships died too. Without Tholmach's leadership, the Worldbreakers fought as individual ships instead of as a fleet. The humans exploited every weakness. They targeted damaged ships. They focused fire. They used the debris field to their advantage. When the battle ended, the Worldbreaker fleet was destroyed. 50 capital ships reduced to burning wreckage. Hundreds of thousands of Kryn soldiers dead. The most powerful fleet in the Empire gone. The humans had won, but at terrible cost. Earth was scarred. Entire cities were gone. Millions were dead. The planet would take decades to heal, but it would heal. Because the humans survived. In the Kryn capital, the High Command received the news in silence. 4 waves. 4 failures. They had sent soldiers, hunters, psychics, and now a fleet. Nothing worked. The humans could not be conquered. There is only one option left, the War Council leader said quietly. Everyone knew what he meant. The Emperor himself. Dravan the Eternal? He had not personally led an army in 500 years. Emperor Ascendant Dravan had ruled the Kryn Empire for 500 years. He was biologically immortal. He had conquered 40 star systems personally. He commanded technology that could reshape reality itself. He had never lost a battle. He had never retreated. He had never shown mercy. I will end this myself, he declared to his court. The humans have embarrassed us for the last time. I will show them what true power means. He assembled the Annihilator Armada. Every ship was equipped with weapons that could pierce dimensions. Every soldier was handpicked from the elite guard. The fleet was so powerful that other species surrendered at the mere news of its deployment. The Armada arrived at Earth's solar system with overwhelming force. Dravan expected to find a broken species, a desperate people ready to beg for mercy. Instead, he found a unified humanity preparing for war. Every human nation had put aside their differences. Every military force was coordinated. Every civilian was contributing. The planet was one massive war machine, all focused on a single goal: survival. Human fleet Admiral Jinwu commanded the defense from an orbital station that had been converted into a fortress. He was old. He had fought in all 4 previous waves. He had lost friends, family, and comrades, but he had never lost hope. The Emperor comes, he told his commanders. This is everything they have. Everything we have been preparing for. We win this or we die. There is no middle ground. On the ground, Commander Sujin led the unified human military. She had started the war as a lieutenant. Now she was a general commanding forces from 100 nations. She stood in a command center deep beneath what used to be Seoul. All units prepare for final defense, she ordered. The Emperor will try to break us from orbit first. Then he will land. When he does, we show him that Earth is not for taking. In the civilian government, a leader named Hyunjin addressed the entire planet via every communication system available. His speech was simple, direct, honest. We have fought 4 waves. We have lost millions. Our cities are burned. Our world is scarred. But we are still here. We are still standing. Today, the Kryn Emperor comes to finish us. We will show him the same thing we showed his armies. Humans do not give up, ever, for our children, for our future, for Earth. The battle began with an orbital bombardment that made the Worldbreaker fleet's attack look gentle. Dravan's ships fired weapons that tore holes in reality, beams that could pierce any defense, missiles that tracked their targets through multiple dimensions. The human fleet died quickly. They fought bravely, but they were massively outmatched. Jinwu's flagship was destroyed. He survived in an escape pod, watching his fleet burn, but the fleet's sacrifice bought time. Time for the ground forces to prepare. Time for the hidden weapons to activate. Time for the trap to be set. Dravan was not foolish. He had studied the previous failures. He knew the humans were dangerous on their own ground, so he would not give them the advantage. He would land with overwhelming force in multiple locations simultaneously. 10,000 elite Kryn warriors descended. Dravan himself led the assault on Seoul. He floated down from the sky, surrounded by an aura of reality-warping power. He was magnificent, terrifying, unstoppable. Sujin watched him land. She had prepared for this moment. Around her were soldiers from every nation, veterans who had survived all 4 waves. Among them were names that had become legendary: Daesung, who had fought the first wave; Taiyang, who had hunted the Void Reapers; Subin, the psychic who had broken the Executors; Minji, the engineer who had turned cities into death traps. Hold, Sujin ordered. Wait for my signal. Dravan walked through the ruins of Seoul, his soldiers spread out around him. He reached out with his power, expecting to sense human fear. Instead, he felt determination, anger, defiance. "Come out!" he called in a voice that shook the ground. "Face your emperor. Face your doom." Sujin gave the signal. The ground erupted. Humans emerged from every building, every tunnel, every hiding place. They had let the Kryn land. They had let them think they were in control. Now they showed the truth. A human scientist named Yunji had spent the months between the fourth and fifth waves developing new weapons. She had studied every piece of captured Kryn technology. She had pushed human science to its limits and beyond. Her weapons did not rely on primitive explosives anymore. They used captured Kryn power cores. They used modified psychic amplifiers. They used technology that humans had no business understanding, but had learned anyway because survival demanded it. The first weapon hit Dravan's shield. The Emperor laughed. "Your weapons cannot," the shield shattered. Dr. a single quotes villain staggered. "Impossible. His personal shield could withstand a nuclear blast?" But Yunji's weapon was designed specifically to break Kryn shields. It used the same frequency as their own power systems. It turned their strength against them, now. Sujin shouted. Human soldiers attacked from every direction. A soldier named Dongwu charged directly at a Kryn elite guard. He was shot 3 times but kept coming. He tackled the alien and detonated a magnetic mine that destroyed them both. Sniper named Era hit Kryn soldiers with bullets modified by Yunji, each round carried a small charge that disrupted Kryn armor at the molecular level. She killed 15 before they even knew she was there. A heavy weapons specialist named Sejun fired a weapon that should not exist. It was a Kryn plasma cannon modified to run on human power cells. It overheated with every shot. It would probably explode after a dozen uses. But it could kill Kryn soldiers in their armor, and that was all that mattered. Dravan recovered from his shock and unleashed his full power. Reality bent around him. Gravity reversed. Time slowed. He was not just a soldier. He was a force of nature. 500 humans died in seconds, but 500 more replaced them, and 500 more after that. The humans kept coming. They did not care about the Emperor's power. They did not care about their own lives. They cared about their home. Dravan killed thousands, but tens of thousands attacked him. He was powerful, but he was still physical. He could still be hurt. He could still bleed. A human commander named Minho led a strike team directly at Dravan. They were the best soldiers humanity had. Veterans of all 4 previous waves. They knew Kryn tactics. They knew Kryn weaknesses. They had survived by being smarter, faster, and more determined than their enemies. "For the ones we lost?" Minho shouted. His team attacked in perfect coordination. They used Yunji's weapons. They used captured Kryn equipment. They used human ingenuity and alien technology together. Dravan killed 3 of them, then 5, then 10, but Minho reached him. He carried a weapon that Yunji had called the Last Hope. It was a bomb. A very special bomb. It would detonate the Kryn power core inside Dravan's own armor. It would kill everyone within 50 meters, including Minho. "This is for Earth," Minho said quietly. Dravan realized what was happening. "You would die just to kill me?" "Without hesitation," Minho replied. The bomb detonated. When the light faded, Dravan was on the ground. His armor was shattered. He was bleeding. For the first time in 500 years, the Emperor was mortal. Human soldiers surrounded him. Not to capture, not to interrogate, to finish it. Dravan looked up at them with ancient eyes. "What are you?" "We have conquered hundreds of species. We have ended civilizations. But you are different. What are you?" Sujin stepped forward. She had survived the entire battle. She was covered in blood, both human and Kryn. She looked down at the dying Emperor without pity. "We are what happens when you threaten our home," she said simply. "We are what happens when you give us no choice but to fight. We are survivors." And we will do anything, sacrifice anything to protect what is ours. Dravan tried to speak again, but his voice failed. He died in the ruins of Sol, surrounded by the species he had tried to exterminate. Across the planet, the Annihilator Armada fell. Without their emperor, without their command structure, they were just soldiers in a hostile world. Human forces destroyed them systematically. It took 3 days. 3 days of brutal fighting. But when it was over, every Kryn soldier on Earth was dead. The few ships that tried to escape were destroyed by the orbital defenses. Jinwoo had survived in his escape pod. He had made it to a repair station. With a patched-together fleet, he ensured nothing left the system. News of the Emperor's death spread across the galaxy faster than light. The Kryn Empire fell into chaos. Other species that had been enslaved saw their chance. Rebellions erupted on 100 worlds. The mighty Kryn Empire, which had ruled for 1,000 years, collapsed in months. Humans did not celebrate. They mourned. Millions had died. Earth was devastated. It would take generations to rebuild. But they had survived. They had won. A year after the final battle, a memorial was built in Seoul. On it were the names of every human who had died in the 5 waves. Millions of names. But humanity insisted on one more name, Mordek. The Kryn lieutenant who had tried to warn his commander. The one alien who had seen the truth. Other species approached Earth cautiously. They sent ambassadors. They offered alliances. They were afraid. But they were also respectful. The humans defeated the Kryn, they said to each other. They defeated 5 waves. They killed the Emperor himself. We should not make them our enemies. A human diplomat named Ji-won, the same medic who had survived the first wave, met.